2 days, 2 stories. On December 1st, Russia declares Pokrovsk fully captured and shows a flag in the city center. On December 2nd, Putin publicly celebrates the liberation as a major turning point in the war. But 1 week later, NATO officers quietly say Russia holds more than 95%, not 100. Ukrainian commanders insist their troops still control the northern districts, and drone footage shows active fighting where the Kremlin claims there is none. So which map is real? Moscow's clean victory or the messy battlefield on the ground? Watch to the end to uncover the real status of Pokrovsk. This is not just another ruined Donbass town. Pokrovsk is a logistics brainstem. Rail spurs, fuel depots, repair yards, and road junctions all converge here. Before the war, it moved coal and steel. During the war, it moved ammunition, replacement units, and wounded soldiers in and out of Ukraine's eastern front. Whoever controls Pokrovsk controls how fast the front line can breathe. Russia has been trying to put this city on a victory map for nearly 20 months. Infantry pushed in from the southeast, from mining settlements that barely exist anymore. Artillery batteries turned entire districts into geometry problems, block by block, grid square by grid square. Armored columns probed for weak spots and left burning wrecks when those spots didn't exist. By late October 2025, Russian units finally cracked into the city itself. Assault groups slipped through industrial zones and railway cuttings, using warehouses and slag heaps as cover. Ukrainian commanders responded the only way they could, throwing in elite air assault brigades to hold the line inside the streets instead of outside them. The battle for Pokrovsk stopped being about fronts and became a fight for stairwells, courtyards, and elevator shafts. The cost was staggering. Analysts estimate Russia burned through thousands of armored vehicles and tens of thousands of troops to advance a few dozen square kilometers toward this one rail hub. But in Moscow, those numbers are background noise. What matters is the map, and whether it shows a solid Russian color over Pokrovsk. On December 2nd, Vladimir Putin appears in a televised front briefing. Generals tell him Pokrovsk and Vovchansk are captured. He calls it one of the war's most important victories, proof that Russia's long grind in eastern Ukraine is paying off. But NATO officers and Ukrainian field commanders are looking at a different picture. Their maps show something more complicated. A city that is 90 to 95% under Russian control, but not fully sealed. Ukrainian units still hold the northern railway line and pockets of high ground. The battle for Pokrovsk hasn't ended. It has entered its most dangerous phase. In this Navy Ops breakdown, we'll walk through how Russia actually fought its way into Pokrovsk, why the Kremlin rushed to declare victory, and what the tactical reality on the ground looks like 1 week after that announcement. Did Russia really capture Pokrovsk? Or did they just take enough of it to sell a story? Russian forces didn't take Pokrovsk through speed. They took it through pressure. Relentless, layered, and engineered to force the Ukrainian defense into collapse long before the city center fell. By early November 2025, Russia shifted from broad front assaults to a methodical urban strangulation strategy. Instead of pushing everywhere at once, Russian commanders concentrated armor, drone operators, and assault detachments along 2 penetration axes: the southeastern industrial belt and the southern residential districts. The goal was simple: cut the city in half. Lancet strike teams hunted Ukrainian artillery in real time, targeting any tube or rocket system that tried to slow the Russian advance. The skies over Pokrovsk swarmed with competing drones, quadcopters, loitering munitions, EW birds, all fighting for dominance over less than 20 square kilometers of terrain. Footage from both sides showed the same thing: soldiers advancing only when their drone operators could see, and dying when they couldn't. Russian infantry units, Many of them Storm Z assault elements reinforced by VDV platoons moved block to block using a brutal but effective formula. Identify resistance. Overwhelm with FPV drones. Breach. Clear. Repeat. Buildings weren't taken. They were consumed. The Ukrainian defense was equally determined. Air assault brigades, long regarded as some of Ukraine's toughest units, formed mobile fire teams that launched counterattacks every night. Their commanders understood that Pokrovsk could not be allowed to fall cleanly. The city's northern corridor had to remain open at any cost. If Russia closed that gap, Ukrainian forces inside the city would be trapped. But Russian engineers had their own timetable. As assault troops advanced, engineering battalions followed behind them, constructing temporary bridging, clearing debris, and establishing armored approach routes through the ruined city blocks. These routes allowed Russia to move heavier equipment directly toward the center of Pokrovsk, something that had been impossible weeks earlier. By November 25th, Ukrainian officers were reporting that Russian units had reached within 600 meters of the central administrative plaza. Satellite imagery confirmed entire districts reduced to rubble, with defensive positions collapsing under combined artillery and drone saturation. When the Russian flag appeared in that December 1st video, the world saw a symbolic moment. Commanders on the ground saw something different. A calculated information operation designed to cement the narrative before the tactical situation fully stabilized. Because even as Moscow declared victory, Ukrainian troops were still fighting inside Pokrovsk's northern arc, holding trenches, ruined workshops, and a string of fortified rail yards that anchored the last Ukrainian foothold in the city. For Ukraine, the northern districts of Pokrovsk became a lifeline, one that had to be held, even as every hour made the defense more costly. Ukrainian commanders shifted their strategy from urban blocking positions to a flexible delay and disrupt pattern, designed not to stop Russia entirely, but to deny the Kremlin a clean, unambiguous victory inside the city. Small Ukrainian teams operated from shattered rail depots, maintenance yards, and the upper floors of half-collapsed apartment blocks. Their mission was simple: keep pressure on Russian units, force them to treat Pokrovsk as an active battlefield, and prevent Russia from redeploying key battalions to Mirnohrad or Kharkov. Every day they held out was another day the Russian advance elsewhere slowed. Meanwhile, Russian forces pushed to finalize control. Artillery units established firing belts on the southern and eastern edges of the city, coordinating with EW operators who swept the northern corridor with jamming pulses. Russian assault groups attempted repeated pushes to sever the last Ukrainian positions from the countryside beyond, but the terrain worked against them. Rail embankments, industrial waste piles, and broken concrete created natural choke points, ideal for ambushes. On multiple occasions, Ukrainian defenders halted Russian pushes with a combination of anti-armor teams, night-flying drones, and pre-registered mortar fire. Still, the pressure was undeniable. By December 6th, NATO sources described Russia's control at over 95%, a diplomatic way of saying that Pokrovsk was effectively, but not formally, lost. Ukrainian officials, however, refused to concede. They insisted their troops were still operating inside the northern districts, and drone footage leaked to AP News supported that claim. Tracer fire, destroyed vehicles, and active fighting could still be seen across the northern belt. For Moscow, it didn't matter. The declaration had already been made. The flag had already been raised. For the Kremlin's audience, the narrative was complete. Pokrovsk had fallen. But for analysts, officers, and anyone following the war closely, the truth was more complex. Pokrovsk was not a clean capture, but a grinding, high-cost, nearly Pyrrhic victory, one that drained Russian manpower and materiel at a staggering rate. The city may be taken, but it is not stable. And as long as Ukrainian forces continue operating in its northern edge, Russia cannot fully consolidate its hold. This is the story behind Russia's claimed capture of Pokrovsk, a victory announced before the smoke cleared, a battle still burning at the margins, and a city whose fate remains contested even as the world moves on.